Well, good morning. It's slightly past the appointed hour. Let's call to order the meeting of the MAPS 3 Citizens Advisory Board for December 18, 2014. You've been provided with a copy of the minutes of the November meeting. Are there additions or corrections? It's been moved and seconded that we accept the minutes as written. Further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The minutes are approved. David, you have provided us in the packet with the MAPS 3 revenue and expenditure report and the budget and obligation report. Any comments?
No, sir. It's in its usual form. Yes, sir. It's in its usual form. Pardon me.
It's been a morning, David.
It has been. This is the revenue and expenditure report for the period ending November 30th, and you can see on the revenue side for the month $9,223,400, fiscal year $46,558,988, for a total of $463,302,347. On the expenditure side for the month is $1,351,524. This report shows that there's $8,414,247, but I have to tell you there was when we did the report, there was some accounting going on, so it doesn't properly reflect on the streetcar and the grant money, but that will be reflected next month. It was reflected last month, but it's just how the accounts were moving when this report happened to be pulled. So under the streetcar, it lists only $898,353 for fiscal year, but it actually should be $5,448,443. And then likewise in the total for the expenditures, we have a total program of $75,800,000 approximately, because the streetcar should be $12,387,084. And then on to the budget and obligations report.
Before you leave that, I want to make sure that our resident financial expert understands what David has said. Michael, any comments to offer us?
Lance discussed this with me earlier in the week, and so I think they're still transferring money between grants and funds, and so they'll get it sorted out.
You feel okay about it?
Well, I think with the corrected numbers, I think we're okay.
I did want to point out one thing, David, before you leave that. On footnote 2, on the target on the right-hand side, that continues to be great news. Does that mean that we're 5.9% above the original target on revenue income?
Yes, sir.
That's got to be good news for all of us. Here we are ending 4 years headed toward 5, and we're still almost 6% above the original estimate. So that's got to be great news for all of us. Okay, David, go ahead.
Then on the budget and obligations report, you can see the various expenditures and the remaining budgets on the projects as you've asked for previously. I can answer any other questions.
Any questions or comments? Shall we receive the report?
I move that we receive the report.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. We receive the report as offered. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The report's received. Item 4, David.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item 4 is recommend approval of draft final specifications for MAPS 3 Downtown Public Park Demolition Bidding Package 5, Project M3-P012. These are the specifications for the demolition of the previous Salvation Army buildings that are in the park. It's listed as draft here only because we have ongoing asbestos removal and we don't know exactly when that will be completed, and the specifications typically have dates for when this will bid. They're blank right now, and therefore that makes this a draft. As soon as we get the asbestos demolition completed, then we will fill in those dates and send this on to council for demolition. This comes to you with approval from the Park Subcommittee.
Any comments, Kim?
Other than we are excited that the architectural elements that may be salvaged from the building before it's demolished will be. So we've done everything in due diligence and best interest, and we're ready to move this forward.
Further questions or comments? Shall we approve this?
I'll make a motion that we approve, please.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the draft final specifications for the park demolition bidding package. Further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. It's approved. Item 5, David.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item 5 is recommend resolution approving amendment number 2 to contract for engineering services with S2O Design and Engineering for MAPS 3, Oklahoma River Phase 3 Whitewater Facility. Fee increase of $175,000. Project M3-R004. This amendment has several things in it. Most notably, it is for inspection services for the project. And what that will get us is Jeffrey Guston, who is integral in the design of this project, will be on site for 20 hours a week. And we feel that this is appropriate because of the complexity and uniqueness of the project. So we have completed this amendment for them to provide those services. And that represents about $108,000 of this total amendment. The amendment also includes the additional fee for the FEMA study that was conducted there along the river, some detailed design at the Lincoln Boulevard connection, and then there were also some guidelines that S2O had to put together for the Department of Labor, because the Whitewater facility, it's very unique and unusual, and as far as regulations from a state level, it could have been DEQ, but they wanted to treat it as a swimming pool, and it's not a swimming pool, and the chlorine levels are not going to be such. So it's going to be treated as an amusement ride, even though it's really not that, but that's best where it fell. Department of Labor didn't have any kind of regulations to deal with this, so S2O worked with them and developed those regulations so that we could get this approval through the state. So there's a fee for that. There's also some additional trips and travel expenses that were unforeseen because of some extra presentations that we asked them to give.
Okay.
So I hope that wasn't too much, but that's what this is for. And
I would just comment, David, that a couple of us had the opportunity to walk the site the other day, and I don't think there's any way to understand how complex this project really is unless you get out there and start walking. And not just how complex it is, but the scope and size of it. It's just going to be so exciting, but it is a full-time job. So, Jeffrey, welcome to Oklahoma City.
D, does this come with the recommendation of the subcommittee?
Yes, it does.
Is there further discussion, or are there questions?
Second.
Been moved and seconded that we approve this amendment to the contract for engineering services. Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. It is approved. David, item 6.
Item 6 is recommend resolution amending the MAPS 3 modern streetcar/transit budget, waiving the consultant selection procedures for project M3-S007, MAPS 3 transit/modern streetcar project, plus the Hudson Avenue Street project and the Intermodal Transportation Hub, E.K. Gaylord Boulevard project, and approving the engineering/consulting services contract with Jacobs Engineering Group Incorporated, fee of $8,252,000. This is an amendment for the existing Jacobs contract for them to do many things within the streetcar, and those things include the mainline design, the construction administration for the cars, the design of the maintenance facility, the construction administration for the maintenance facility, the procurement of the rail. But also included in this resolution is a realignment of budget. And this is similar to what we did with a little bit with the fairgrounds when we moved from Phase 1 to Phase 2. It's certainly similar to what we did with the river when we moved Phase 4 down to Phase 3. This stays all within the streetcar budget, But it's, as I said, it's just reallocation of the various line items. This comes also with the recommendation from the subcommittee.
So no increase in the overall budget, just the pace of spending.
That's correct.
Nathaniel, anything from the subcommittee?
I'll just add that we unanimously approved this change, but as far as what to do with that Phase 2 money, it's $8.5 million that would be left in Phase 2 after this change. That's still up in the air. We've talked about maybe it'd be better to add one or two or even three more actual streetcars, the actual vehicles, as opposed to adding line, because this line as it is just over 5 miles, and our goal is to do 5 to 6. So, we're not locking in what we're going to do in a follow-on phase, but we do know with the new information that this was an appropriate change for Phase 1 as it stands.
Saying anything to add?
I have a question.
Yes.
This is not a cost-saving move by waiving the consultant service, the selection process.
No, it's not cost savings, no.
But there would have been some costs associated with it?
Mostly time, and we felt like Jacobs Engineering is invested so far into this project that it was best that we continue with them. The original advertisement didn't specifically say certain aspects of what this contract contains, and that's why we have to put that in there.
And the $200,000 for additional services, is that related to the consulting that Jacob would be doing?
It is. Within the contract, it lists what additional services can be if we need additional copies of something, or if we need a survey or something like that. It allows us to just initiate that.
Okay, thank you.
Tom, I have a question as well.
Yes, Michael.
Has to do with on the budget toward the bottom of the graph there, the Phase 2 construction at FFE. Of course, it's a good thing, but just was curious if anyone had a thought as to why originally we thought 18 million and it's been reduced to 7 million. That's a good thing, I suppose, but just was curious about that particular line item.
Well, we had extensive conversation on that. And part of it is because the budget was built on the LPA, or the locally preferred alternative route. And now the Zeta has grown.
Yes. Never.
And I think the second thing is that the budget was also based on a 100% catenary system with cars without batteries, and so we've now, gone far enough to... Got it. And for those that don't need to be reminded or are only hearing it for the first time, we now will have a system that's probably 50% off catenary, and very desirable, but the car's more expensive than we'd originally forecast.
Further questions or comments? Shall we approve this resolution? It's been moved and seconded that we approve the resolution amending the modern streetcar transit budget as provided in the resolution. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. It is adopted. That brings us to item 7 and some special guests that we have. David, would you introduce them for us?
Yes, sir, I'd be glad to. Today we have Mary Margaret Jones with Hargraves and Associates, and Gavin McMillan is here also. And we'd like to give you an update on what's going on with the downtown park. So I'd like to invite her up to the podium.
Welcome, Mary Margaret.
Thank you very much. Very happy to be here. Thank you for having me. And did you find it okay? Thanks so much. So this is a progress update. We've had lots of meetings and presentations this week, our subcommittee, city council, many different stakeholders, and so we're in sort of the fast and furious phase of working through issues. But there have been enough updates since we last presented to you that we wanted to fill you in. We have been working from the master plan, of course, that was approved late 2013, early 2014. We are now in what we call preliminary design. So we will be completing preliminary design in a month or two, and then we will go into final plans and specs. So now is the time to fill you in and get any thoughts that you have, any input that you have. We always go back and remind ourselves of the public input we received. You may remember seeing this form. We asked questions. We asked people to prioritize what they would like to see in the park, what kind of park they hope there to be, and we asked in these various categories of recreation, performance and events, education, and special features. We got over 1,600 replies, which is pretty amazing, and more than we get in much larger cities. And we went back recently and checked the demographics, and in fact, a wide range of demographics. So not just one segment of the population giving us input, a broad spectrum of the population giving us input. And this shows you the prioritization. And it was interesting to us to learn how much emphasis people put on nature, native walks, native plants, sustainability, but also performances and events and festivals. And then, of course, children's play, water features, those kinds of things that make parks fun and successful. So since the master plan, we have been working with this group that you see here. Myriad Gardens Foundation has been super helpful because they know so much lessons learned from Myriad Gardens. They know what they wish they had more of. They know ways that this park can be different, and they know what's working in terms of technical issues, what's growing, what's not growing, those kinds of things. We've met with not only entertainment promoters, but also festival organizers, so that we understand how to design this park so that it will work for festivals, from the Arts Festival to many other kinds of festivals. We've been testing. We're developing a panel of local plant experts because we discovered that the problem is bigger than any one person of what to plant and have it thrive. So we're developing this panel of experts, and we're very excited about that. And then we've met with all the other MAPS projects, of course, to coordinate closely what we're all doing. So this is kind of a dense diagram. It shows the plan from before, Master Plan 2013, and it shows where we are today. And you'll see a number of notes, but I'll highlight the 4 major ways that we have improved upon the master plan. And you start with what we call the 100% corner, the corner of Robinson and the Boulevard, where previously we were marking that corner, which is such a special corner, with a major civic fountain. As we got into schematic design, we just realized that fountain just really did not fit there. A lot is trying to happen on that corner, including access to the back of the stage for setting up these major events and performances. And we also knew there was a desire to mark that spot very significantly. And when the fountain's off, it really wouldn't be performing that service. We also thought that the fountain, if it moved, where you see in the schematic design, down and more into the heart of the park, it would help draw people down. We want to draw people south. This is core to shore, and we want to get people moving into the heart of the park, and it would create a great synergy with the children's play area and the lake and the interactive fountain, and the interactive fountain could be bigger, and it could have an area of lawn next to it, because we've learned in all our parks that people love to sit on the lawn and watch people playing in the fountain. So that was the biggest first move. The second move was to take the cafe and really have it form an edge to the boulevard. So we turned it, as you can see in the 2 diagrams, and it forms an urban edge, an active urban edge to the boulevard, and a portal as you're coming down what used to be known as Harvey Spine, but the mid-block crossing, which is so important and everybody is committed to maintaining. As you come down that mid-block crossing, the cafe forms a real portal into the park. The next thing was a whole new thing we came up with, and that's the boathouse, the idea of the boathouse. So there's now this really cool, and I'll show you examples of it, but this really cool place to gather on the lake, rent a boat, have a beer, have a hot dog, watch the sun. It's a really fantastic moment that we sort of discovered. And then finally, the 4th thing was to rethink the Robinson Gardens as you approach I-40, and to raise that land. In the master plan, it was sort of a hole. You were down. You were depressed. To elevate that area more in in the same plane as the approach to Skydance Bridge. So it creates a gathering space as you approach Skydance Bridge. So those are the four main. You'll see smaller things like we added a dog park and we moved the drop-off for Union Station, smaller things. But those were the four major things. And you see in these side-by-side aerial sketches, the major things are still there. The oval, the lake, the urban gardens, the woodlands, and all the things to do within those. So this focuses more on where we are now, and you can see at the corner we've put in a placeholder of a vertical sculptural piece at that corner, but we see that as a major marker. And then you can see the cafe and the stage, and in the distance the play area, the lake and the boathouse and the fountain and the gardens that connect to Skydance Bridge and Union Station. So I'll take you through those. But first noting, I'm so glad that's not me, it's usually mine. 37 acres, 15 unique areas. This is very important. You may remember some of our earliest diagrams when we said we could either put all the focus up at the top or we could distribute the focus. We've done that. We've distributed the destinations throughout the park. So in the upper park, and remember this is just upper park now, 15 unique destinations, 15 unique areas. I think it will be 1 million visitors a year, but HRNA predicted upwards of 560,000. And then that's our construction budget, $55.6 million for this upper park. And you see in the pie chart, we are responding to the public input. It is mostly a soft park. So, at the boulevard, the cafe, and the way the cafe addresses the boulevard edge and creates a sort of a recreational zone, bocce courts, outdoor eating, and a kind of bond, a seam between the boulevard and the urban gardens, the boulevard gardens, and then the oval on the left of this view. And moving into the cafe, there's this much more outdoor space as part of the cafe than there is indoor space, because it's about shade and being outside and enjoying beautiful Oklahoma evenings. And so that indoor-outdoor relationship is very important. Behind you in this view is the hearth. And you see the hearth in this view, and that's the outdoor fireplace. So we're stretching the seasons as much as we can with shade and with the fireplace. You can see the lighting effect and the sort of beacon that the cafe creates as a portal to the park. As you move to the oval, nothing has really changed except we've added a lot more shade on the edges of the oval, still keeping enough space in the middle of the oval lawn for pickup soccer games, soccer field fits, but more shade because we've learned that people like to hang out in the shade and watch the activity on the center of the lawn. You still get those great skyline views from the hill. And now the fountain in the heart of the park has much more breathing room, has an adjacent lawn to sit on, and has these sort of various sizes of water effects. So it appeals to small children, medium-sized children, and grown-up children like us. And you see that relationship to the promenade. So we still have the beautiful lights designed by Jamie Carpenter that refract light in the day and cast light at night along the entire stretch of the promenade. And the fountain on your left and to your right is the children's play area and the lake. So this is a new view looking back toward the city slightly from the air, and it shows you how those destinations sort of sprinkle throughout the park and distribute themselves across the park. And in the very foreground, you see the new Robinson Gardens and the way they've been raised up to relate to the elevation of the approach to Skydance Bridge. And there at eye level, you see that space as well. This being pretty near Union Station, this could be a great place for outdoor weddings. Something Myriad Gardens wants more and more space to accommodate. Lots of people like to get married in the parks. And then the woodland gardens, in the master plan, we were thinking of them as just a whole area that we called woodland gardens. We realized that the maintenance of that is pretty intensive and difficult to achieve. So now the woodland gardens are specific destinations within this trail. So this trail winds through woodlands, and then there are these lens-shaped, sort of contact lens-shaped gardens, each one different. So a butterfly garden, a wetland garden, one is lawn with hills for kids to run on. So each of them is different, and they become destinations, and interpretive signage will sort of lead you along this woodland path. And then from the hill at the back of the oval lawn, you look across those woodland gardens to the lake, the bridge across the lake, and Union Station and Skydance in the background. and on the lake, the boathouse. And the boathouse being as much about the deck as it is about the house, but in the house, a small place to get drinks and sandwiches, hot dogs, that kind of thing, rent a boat, rent a model boat, so both model sailboats as well as boats that you can get in and get on the water. And the view from that is pretty spectacular. So we really hadn't leveraged this opportunity in the master plan, the view toward Union Station and toward Skydance Bridge across this lake and down a finger of the lake, so the lake will appear its biggest possible from this vantage. And then at Union Station, by moving that vehicular drop-off to the side, to the west side, in front of Union Station, we can have this lovely plaza. And hopefully cafe, restaurants spill out, weddings spill out onto this beautiful terrace. And this is a real bucolic Sunday afternoon in the park kind of view with the lake in the background. Okay, a couple of recent things that we've been working on a day-to-day basis, making sure we are distributing basic services like bathrooms and where you can get food and beverage, making sure that that's distributed throughout the park. On a market day, making sure that there are places for tables and chairs, food carts, food trucks, and staging of all of that and using the stage for small events. And then function days, such as weddings, where you can have weddings of different sizes and how they can stage. And this can be a minor but still important income-producing activity within the park. And I'm not showing you the diagrams because they're very complex and hard to read, but we've done diagrams for the Arts Festival, for Stage 1 size events, Stage 2 size events, performances, and Stage 3 size performances to see how they work. And the bottom line I will give you is that once you get into the Arts Festival and Stage 2 and 3 size events, it means taking over a couple of lanes of Robinson. So Robinson still functions, but it's not all 4 lanes. And for the Arts Festival, it means closing the boulevard between Hudson and Robinson, which Public Works is on board with us with these ideas. So the park can be used big ways, small ways, very important. The fountain, the idea of the fountain is to reflect the blowing grasses of the prairies of Oklahoma. So that movement, that sort of constant movement, is something we're reflecting both in the stainless steel pipes that will emit the jets and in the jets themselves. And as the fountain gets lower and lower, you can see it's progressing from high to low. The lower ones are just water. And you can barely see these diagrams. The low ones have these small stainless steel tubes. The very tallest ones have taller stainless steel tubes that sort of split like grasses do at the top, and light will emit from those as well as water. So this is with all the water on. The darker wedge shape that you see is just a couple of inch deep pool of water, like at Myriad Gardens, for really small kids to pad around in. And you see all the jets on. When the high winds pick up, the jets turn off automatically, but you still have the pool, the 2-inch pool of water, and you still have the stainless steel beautiful sort of wands that the water comes from. And then for when Peter wants to put up a tent, that waiting pool goes away, and that becomes a plaza on which a tent could be set up for special events. And these are some images that show you the idea of these various water effects. The playground, we continue to elaborate on the children's play garden or children's play area. You have to look at how different age groups can be safe and challenged and interact. So you have different areas for different age groups, so parents and caregivers can see where their kids are and are appropriately using it. And then you have to make it fun. So, swing valleys, rope valleys for bigger kids, rope walks in the treetops to treetop forts, that kind of thing, so that it speaks to all ages, and you see even to all levels of ability and to all ages, including adults and aging adults, so that there's something for everyone. Gardens, kids learning to grow things, garden maze, and then play equipment, as you see. So it's pretty big, and we think it's an important part of the heart of the park. And you can see we're creating topography as well as play structures, as well as a shade structure with bathrooms and an office and storage. So taking care of all the functional needs. Along the boulevard, working with Public Works and as soon as we can, ODOT, to tie down the details of the boulevard and that mid-block crossing and the special paving that will grow across the boulevard. And this is the view that we are making sure that the view down that mid-block crossing works as you enter the park. And then on Robinson, making sure that Robinson works with the ODOT's plans and Public Works plans and with the park. And you see the top section is where we hope a major piece of sculpture will be at the corner. Moving down Robinson, you see where we have food trucks pulled up to a grove of trees where you can eat in the shade. Further down, you see the fountain adjacent to Robinson. And then all the way closest to I-40, you see the gardens and the approach to the Skydance Bridge, terracing down to the tunnel that goes under Robinson that connects this part of the park to that development parcel east of the park. And finally, next to that major piece of sculpture, we think the benches here should be special and whimsical and sculptural and playful and invite people to come into the park. So we're looking at sculptural form and we're looking at light within those benches that make them special, and we want to make them robust, not to worry. And then, I guess, actually, finally, the dog park. We can't forget about the dog park. And making sure that the dog park is shady. We're seeing it on the Hudson side, where we think the future residential will mostly be, and separating small dogs from all dogs and giving everybody shade. And the bridge over the lake, making it a steel bridge that speaks to Oklahoma's heritage, I think, as an industrial past and railroad past, but then lining that with wood. So you're walking on wood, the sides are wood, the wood slats have spaces between them, so when you light it, the light casts across the bridge and down onto the water as well, and that wood can pop up and be a bench on the bridge, so you can sit, have your picture taken, and look at the lights of the city. So what are we doing next? We're continuing to work with all the stakeholders. We're continuing to work with that plant panel of experts on plants and develop a planting strategy. We're looking for more and more opportunities for shade. This is something Myriad Gardens folks are encouraging us to do, and we are continuing to look at both trees and built shade. We're continuing as we go. We do cost estimates all the time and update them as we go. And then we will submit our preliminary report February or March, as we work through some of these stakeholder issues. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mary Margaret. Questions?
I have one question or suggestion, is that when you put the fountains in with the tilt of the sprayers, that you do it taking into consideration the prevailing winds in Oklahoma City, because if not, you're going to be blowing.
Always blowing the other direction. That's a really good point. Thank you.
The prevailing winds, however, I think the prevailing winds are 360 degrees, so I'm not sure how we do that.
Actually, there is a prevailing wind. The river, I think, when they were looking at the windscreen, looked at prevailing winds for the design.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I had a question about the lawn. So I had some friends that used to play Ultimate Frisbee on the Myriad Gardens lawn, but apparently it was tearing it up too much. So just, I guess, we want to encourage people on this lawn for this park for it to be able to be used for all kinds of athletic activities that are much more rough than people sitting, listening to performance. So just whatever kind of design criteria, whatever kind of ruggedness is required to make sure that it doesn't turn into, something that has puddles and doesn't have issues with getting grass torn up.
I totally agree, and thank you for that comment. And there's two things we do. One thing, we make sure it drains. The other is we use a whole substrata system that's similar to athletic fields, and it costs more, but you got to do it because that's what allows it to take that beating. So it's a plastic. It's not plastic cells, but it's intermixed with the soil, and it's fibrous and plastic, and it gives it much more stability. Anybody else? Yes.
Dee?
Has there been any thought to having like chess areas, like concrete benches like they do in New York and Brooklyn, where people can sit and play chess and that kind of
It hasn't come up. That sounds really interesting. Do you have a chess community?
Well, I think that's something that they find each other, if they know they're there, I think they'll come.
They'll come. That's a great idea.
So. Thank you.
I do know there are several schools that have chess clubs, so
good.
I can see that being.
I like that idea.
Something.
Kim, anything from the committee you want us to hear?
Well, obviously, we were very excited. What we see today is just a small scope of the whole project, but we're blown away every time that Hargraves comes to town, and we're so excited that you're so well entrenched in the city, that you're meeting with so many stakeholders, and I couldn't imagine doing this project with anybody else.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Happy
Mayor
holidays.
Could you just
Gavin.
refresh me on what the timing is, when we're going to start construction, and when we expect the park to be open? Sorry.
Timing?
We think it's pretty exciting to consider the fact that this upper park and a lot of other things will be completed in 2018. So imagine in 2018, this park, maybe Convention Center, Boulevard, modern transit, hopefully Union Station by then. Now I'm speculating. I'll stick to our goal, 2018. Summer of, fall of, something like that. We'll be back with more precise dates, but that's where we're shooting for.
And that's on the upper part.
That's the upper part.
Lower part completed hopefully by the end of 2021.
Yeah, 2021 is what's been on the schedule for the lower park. But it's almost like a series of rolling packages. It'll be sort of constant, we hope.
And Mayor Margaret, that timeline includes about a year's worth of time to actually do the final plans and specs.
That's right. We need a year to do the final plans and specs.
So we get that early 15 and start construction presumably
You get
early.
final plans and specs late 2015. We start them early 2015.
Get them late.
You get them late 2015, early 2016.
Great.
Then we go to bid, and then we're under construction, and we're finished in 2018. And we're working closely with ADG to make sure we're spending money that you have. That's why it may be several construction packages that are sort of rolling packages, so that we're spending as money comes in. But we're working closely with David and his team and ADG to make sure.
Now, the early implementation plan, as I recall, had a phase along the boulevard we were going to do first, and but the boulevard's construction has been pushed back, so I guess we're not necessarily doing that.
Well, yes, there were two phases in the upper park, and when you get the preliminary report, there'll be recommendations whether we continue with the two phases or we just go ahead and combine them just based on the timing and just better construction methods. So you'll see that preliminary stage.
And the Park Subcommittee at this point, and they have been for a while, is very much in favor for combining those two phases, especially as long as it's taken for the boulevard plans to be executed, so that we are taking those cost savings and economies of scale.
And that's our recommendation as well.
Mary Margaret, on these projects that you do, Hargraves has done quite a few of them, parks. How do you deal with, or is it an issue of people who want to early on kind of hang around, walk around? Is that an issue? And I suppose if it is, you cordon off where people can kind of stay out of?
I presume you mean sort of a population that's less desirable in a park that...
No, I just mean people who just want to kind of come down and congregate and do whatever and walk around. Is that an issue of you trying to discourage people from doing that? Is that even a concern?
That's not usually our concern.
Okay. All right.
We're happy for that, unless you mean during construction. During construction, that's what you mean, during construction. It'll be fenced off. And, maybe there'll be some early opening of a corner. I don't know. That's yet to be determined, but the whole thing will be, you have to keep out of the contractor's way.
But is that an issue? I mean,
It's easy to keep people out. Don't worry.
Other questions for Mary Margaret? Well, thank
you.
you, Mary Margaret. Thank you, Gavin, for being with us today. We really appreciate you being here and the great work you're doing.
Great, thank you.
Item 8 on the agenda is new business. Is there any new business, David?
No, sir.
Okay, that brings us to item 9, the subcommittee reports. We've heard from several reports today. Any subcommittees want to make a report about something we haven't heard already? Kim?
The only thing I would like to add in Parks is that we had a presentation yesterday from Robbie Kinzel, who is liaison in the Cultural and Arts Department, and it was really exciting to see how our arts budget comes together and the selection and just another portion of the design that is becoming more and more real.
Yeah, you might comment too, Kim, if you would, about there will be a committee that works on this, and you and the subcommittee will have a place, and the city council will have a place on the committee that decides the art that goes in there. Could you comment on that?
Yes, the process that we use to put art in public places is very comprehensive, and it certainly has a panel that will consist of 2 members of the main jury. It will consist of 2 members from the subcommittee for the park, and then also a representative from City Council, so that all factions and avenues are looking at the opportunities that we have for art to come into play.
I do think it's important for everybody to remember, not just for this project, but for all of them, that we have a 1% for public art ordinance, but that 1% is calculated on the construction budget of the project. It doesn't relate to any of the soft costs. It doesn't relate to land acquisition. And so in some projects, land acquisition, has been a giant portion of the cost. And so I think we have a significant budget. David, it's $695,000 roughly?
Yes, ma'am, that's for the upper park.
For the upper parks, we have a very significant budget and should allow us to do something exciting. But over each of the 8 projects, that really varies depending on what the actual construction budget is.
And we're also hoping that by February of 2015 or close to that, we will announce that entire panel for the project for the park.
Right. Michael?
Well, the River Subcommittee met this week, and we met at the river. We met at the 4th floor of the Chesapeake Finish Line Tower and had the opportunity, as Meg mentioned, to actually tour the construction site following the meeting. And I think it was very informative, and I think most other committee members or other people that were touring got a much better feel for just how vast the construction site is and how large the channels are and how long they are. I mean, it was much larger, I guess, than I had envisioned, although I'd been by there many times. But just seeing the hole in the ground, it suddenly kind of comes to light that, how large this is going to be. And so I was quite impressed with it, and I think most other folks were. And as far as the status of the project, I think everything's on time. They said it was progressing well, and they've done most of the ground, the digging, which was one of the areas that there was concern about whether or not what they might find when they started digging out in that area. And for the most part, they've gotten into that, and I don't think there's been a lot of surprises in that. So that's been good, too.
Nathaniel?
So the big news for the streetcar subcommittee is, as you probably saw in the newspaper, the selection committee met and has recommended Innoconn as the manufacturer for the city to proceed with negotiating as a manufacturer for the streetcar vehicles. And so that's great news. Very excited about that. That'll be in front of our subcommittee to actually vote on next month. So if that goes according to plan, then we'll be here next month to push that forward to City Council. But we're very pleased. It's from my view, it met all the qualifications that we want to see, and at least the proposal happens to also be appreciably under budget. It's a great looking vehicle.
Appreciably under budget?
Yes. So not just a few dollars, but so obviously that'll be fleshed out in the negotiation process. That I'm glad I don't have to be part of that, because that's pretty complicated stuff. But we looked through everything and had a great process to really understand what our objectives are. The technology is there. It's a really sleek vehicle. It's in operation in other cities, Seattle and Portland. So you can even Google it and see what it looks like. And so we're very excited about that.
Very good. Thank you, Nathaniel. Anyone else? All right, then. That brings us to the David's report, the update report, item 10. David?
Well, just to hit some highlights from each of the subcommittees, as Mr. Adams mentioned, the Whitewater facility continues under construction, and the Phase 2 improvements are nearing completion. Senior Wellness, the design is underway for both Wellness Center number 1 and Wellness Center number 2. Trails and Sidewalks project, Phase 1 of Project 3, let me start over. Phase 1, Project 3 is under construction, and that's nearing completion. Phase 1 Trails, Project 1 and 2 are under construction. Phase 2, Project 1 Sidewalk is under construction. Phase 3 Sidewalks is in design. And then the Phase 2 Trails, which is the I-44 corridor, is in design. The Convention Center, the design has begun on that. Fairgrounds, the expo building is well under construction, and if you go out there, you'll notice the TNT building is nothing but a slab now. It has been taken down, and the parking and utilities are complete. And we saw a presentation on the park, so the design of the upper park is underway, and coordination of utility relocation continues. And Mr. Harding gave us an update with the process on the RFP for the streetcar, and the preliminary design continues for the streetcar.
Any questions for David about that update? All right. That brings us to item 11. Any comments by the board?
I have a comment.
Yes.
I'm just reflecting on the park. I'm so excited about it. And I kind of want to issue a challenge, or maybe just a call to pay attention to current 9th and 8th graders, because they're kids that will be graduating right about the time that the park will be ready, and they're going to be users of that park. So I want them to pay attention and follow along and get involved in their city park.
I promise to do everything I can with my grandkids.
Yep.
So I'm answering that call to arms. Anybody else?
I wanted to make a quick comment if I could. You know, it's the end of the year and that time where I usually start cleaning out emails, and I am just amazed at how much work the MAPS department staff people do in keeping all of this rolling behind the scenes. It's incredible. I realize you all get paychecks. You probably all deserve raises, but I think you have a lot of thanks from each of us from the bottom of our hearts. Have a Merry Christmas.
If I could echo those comments as well, it is just amazing, and I feel it's important to say this at every meeting, but the amount of effort and energy and from this group, from all the subcommittees, we are so blessed to have citizens that care so passionately about what's going on in our community. It's very exciting, but without David, we need about 6 more, I think. we need to clone city staff at this point. There's so many balls in the air. But it's very exciting, and we just appreciate so much what everybody's taken on.
Well, I guess I'll add my thank you as well. As we come to the end of 2014, I'll just remind you that we started this journey, I think, in May of 2010, when the council created the structure for the Citizens Advisory Board and all the subcommittees, and they have provided us with a great staff, and I say thank you to David and all of the staff that do such a great job, and our friends at ADG who keep us on track as well. But I want to particularly say thanks to each of you. It has been a journey. We were remembering today that we started with Rusty, and he had to take a job and leave us, but stayed involved in the process on a subcommittee, and Bob moved up from a subcommittee and replaced him, and we lost Wayne and Gloria came. But for the main part, with those exceptions, the rest of us have been here since inception, and we're on the threshold of a great year. We're moving from thinking about it, designing it, looking at it, having groundbreakings, and the word that seemed to just permeate everything that David said was construction starts. Construction starts, construction's ongoing. So we're going to see a lot of this begin to come out of the ground, as we're already seeing with Whitewater and at the fairgrounds, and I think it's going to be a really exciting time, and I offer my thanks to each of you for the dedication and hard work that you have committed to this project as volunteers. And I hope you'll convey to each of the subcommittees that you're on how much all of us appreciate the great work that's being done by our citizens. So I join in all the rest of you in wishing you a great holiday season, and then would offer the chance to David or anyone from the staff that wants to have a comment.
I appreciate the kind words.
Well deserved, I might say. Anyone from the public here? We have an opportunity for citizen comments. If not, that completes our agenda for the day, and happy holidays to everyone. Been moved and seconded, we adjourn. All in favor? Aye. We're adjourned. Thank you.